Now we segue into this. We're taping this on October 17th. And the last week plus, it's been Donald Trump having the issues that have dominated the headlines with the release of that video from Access Hollywood, the open mic, and the conversations that were there. I'm going to ask both you up on top because you both have said you can see yourself lining with, I can go with Donald Trump. Since that video came out, A, has it changed your mindset about the person? And or B, does it lessen what you think of him as a person? Trish, let me start with you.
No, it hasn't changed my mind, and it has not changed my opinion of him. I think anybody that has been in the public eye for as long as he has, in the entertainment industry nonetheless, there's so many things out there that could be used against him as far as things said, what kind of thing, the kind of things in that tape. I think just growing up and being 40 years old and being around a lot of people, male, female, young, old, I've heard a lot of things over the years that were offensive, and I continue to hear it. Friends, family, I don't like that kind of talk. I don't think that I'm not condoning that kind of discussion, but that was held in a different place. It was how long ago? What was it, 11 years ago? It's just not something that makes me think, oh gosh, I'm gonna throw out my vote. He said something like that. I'm here to say, guess what? Conversations like that are being held all over the place, all the time, by all sorts of people, and I don't care if they say it's not, because it is. I've heard it 40 years, I've been hearing it. Don't like it, but I've been hearing it. Doesn't make it right. That's that. On the same side of things, I think, the timing of it all, that this stuff is being dug up now so close to the end, I think it's pointed, and I think that it's been dug up for a reason, and it just seems real obvious to me, and it just didn't faze me. I mean, it's not that, like I said, I don't condone it. I don't like that kind of talk. I'm definitely not a fan. I'm going to say, oh, yay, Trump for saying that, but at the same time, no, it doesn't.
But you still stand with supporting him to be your next president?
Yes.
Joe, when we went down the line first, you were very adamant about that, very opposite on this. How much, when you heard that release, maybe not necessarily change, but push further your feelings on Mr. Trump?
Well, it's not locker room talk, put it that way. I've been in a lot of locker rooms, and in show business, there's people that say, it's not that talk either. You can throw stuff against the wall and stuff, but it was his words. And like I says, I have a daughter, I have a wife, and they gotta listen to that. Yeah, it was brought up, but he said it. It's in his own words. Is that what he thinks about women? Like I says, is that what a woman wants to? I seen a picture on Facebook that a woman says, you can grab this with an arrow down here. That much respect she has for herself?
Trish, you shake your head on that. I mean, I guess this has been the talk, and I want to just understand this as far as why there is this visceral reaction to those comments, and even with that, the reactions to stick with this candidate.
It's just so easy to just take something like that was said 11 years ago in a situation where who knew that it would be dug up all this time later? And like I said, I'm telling you, if people are saying that nobody talks that way, I'm not saying it's right, again. I wouldn't call myself a prude, but I don't like that kind of conversation. At the same time, it was 11 years ago, completely out of context, not in a political setting, not in a situation where there were, years. It wasn't church. It wasn't, an elementary school. It wasn't supposed to be heard and spread, excuse me, all over Tarnation. And it's just one of those things. It was just, he's apologized. He said he's sorry. I don't think you hear him prancing around, talking like that now. I do believe he has a high respect for women. I mean, I see the way he reacts and how it just moves me when he's listening to his children, his daughters, his wife, his sons speak. He just looks like a proud father, and I don't think it's fair to judge him based on something that was said 11 years ago, and to say, boy, you know, you might as well toss him off for president for something he said. I mean, come on. It just doesn't, and I'm a woman, clearly. You know, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just not fair to just judge a person solely and throw him out because of something that was said 11 years ago.
We'll get going here, but Joe, give me the last word on this.
Wow. I lost my train of thought. It's just.
But I wouldn't vote for any of those people.
But they went back to Bill Clinton from 30 years ago, and that's what he brought up
He
when
was
he
president, though.
apologized. 30 years ago, he went back 30 years. Okay, Hillary Clinton kept her family together through all that. Now, how many times has Trump been married? How many times has he cheated on his other wives when he was still married?
Let's talk to character. I mean, that seems like this is kind of what it comes down to on both candidates. Mrs. Clinton with the email controversy, Mr. Trump with his comments. Character seems to be important. If it was not Hillary Clinton and it wasn't Donald Trump, and you could say the next president is X, who would that be? Are you happy with the candidate? I guess raise your hand if you are happy with the nominee that either party that you're looking at.
That's part of the problem.
I'm okay with it.
You are okay with it.
Both sides, because you don't really hear, I'm not saying anything negative really about Hillary Clinton other than the facts and the things that have been brought to surface regarding her time in political positions. And for me, that's the issue, and that's what I go on. I'm not assaulting her character. I'm not trying to say anything else about that. I'm just saying why I support Trump.
And there would be no one else. And I guess that's my question. If there could be anyone else that you could choose.
I don't know who I would choose. I mean,
Robert, what about you? If there was someone that was out there that you could choose.
Honestly, I'm not very much of a Democrat, but between the two major runners during the primary for that, Bernie Sanders or Hillary, out of those two, I would have preferred Bernie Sanders got the nomination. Conservative side during the primary, I voted for Cruz. And there was, I mean, literally I got to the polling station and I sat there and I looked at it and I almost just eeny-meeny-miny mowed it, to be honest, between Cruz or Trump. But there was several nominees that dropped out early in the race that, at least on the Republican side, that I feel would have been a better option.
Give me one. Who was that one that really just stood out saying, you know what, I'm with so-and-so?
Rand Paul. I liked his views. I liked his flat tax views. I liked his views on the Second Amendment. He kind of wanted to straddle that line between the two parties, but because Trump, he's well-spoken, he's a celebrity. I mean, I feel like all the other choices that there were kind of got the short end of the stick because of his celebrity status. I felt it was a bad time for them to try to run.
Dan, I want to get you on in. You kind of had, I think I kind of got a little bit here from what you were saying, but if you had to pick someone, if it was not one of the nominees, and if it is, tell me why. Otherwise, if you could choose someone right now and say, you know what, that's it.
Well, the short answer is probably Bernie Sanders. But here's the problem with the way that I think that whole question is framed. The job of president is too big for any one man. That's why we have a cabinet. And these guys run with these big personas. I mean, Hillary Clinton gets on her bony knees every night and thanks Jesus that it's Donald Trump running. Because if it had been Rubio or Cruz or anybody else, somebody with even a modicum of character, and not this celebrity persona and this almost preternatural ability to just dig people's hate up into the daylight. I mean, the Republicans have dog whistled before. Nobody's even come close to attacking a Gold Star mother. That's political suicide for anyone else, not for Trump, because the persona is there. So asking which any one candidate, no. Who would this guy nominate for Secretary of Defense? Who would be the? I mean, Lincoln managed to govern with his political enemies around that table. Not which party, but which candidate can give us a working government. What about our relation? What about the fracas going on in Congress? The Republicans won't allow a Supreme Court nominee to come up. The sheer intransigence of it all. The government in perpetual shutdown, emotionally and intellectually. These continuing resolutions. The whole thing is just seized up. No one person could possibly solve that deadlock.
And if that's the case, and I guess I throw it out there, if it's at that point, where did it become that? I guess where did the job of the president become too large? If you do think it's too large for one person, where do we go from here?
I personally think it's all the social media. It used to be a Democratic and a Republican senator could get together and they could be on opposite sides on the floor, but then they could go out for dinner and have a drink with each other and talk and build them relationships so that on the things that really mattered, they could communicate and come to terms and have their groups get together and say, hey, how can we work it out and get something really done? Now, if a Republican and a Democrat are seen out having lunch together, oh, well, you're a rhino, or you're only a Democrat in name. Oh, you're horrible. You're not a real liberal. Oh, you're not a real conservative. It's us. It's not the politicians' fault. It's us as the electorate. We sit out there and we say, well, I don't like you. I don't know what you're doing and why you didn't vote for that or why you voted for that, but you're just doing it all wrong. You talk to the other side and it's evil. They're evil. They're not like us. We can only talk to the people on our own side. And I think that's what's happened.
Let me ask you about this question then, and jump in. With that said, do you think this nation's on the right path?
Certainly not.
Anyone say yes? What does that say for going forward? Because I have 5 people here that are on a lot of sides, and yet no one thinks this country's on the right direction. How important does that make this election in 3 weeks? How important does it make this election on November 8th coming up for us? Robert?
To be honest, with some of the stuff I see, mainly with other countries, how they're reacting to certain candidates' policies towards the issue in Syria and how to defeat ISIS and stuff, I see that, truthfully, for some reason, our election is not just going to determine policy for our country, but it's also going to shape the future of the world as a whole, because everyone is looking at our elections and shaping their own policies based off of what's going to happen.
Do we think that this election has touched on issues that are important for you? And if there's an issue that you think means the most for Western Wisconsin and for this area and for you personally, where do you think you've seen a candidate say, they got my back? Joe, let me start with you.
Well, I just get a gut feeling that I don't think a millionaire is going to have my back, put it that way.
Do you think there's an issue that has been said by someone else that you're like, you know what, they speak my language? They're right on this issue.
There's so much stuff being thrown out there that it's hard to distinguish the issues. A lot of gobbledygook, to tell you the truth.
Trish, what about you? Is there an issue that you've heard Donald Trump say, you know what, yes?
A couple of things actually, but jobs. I watched a rally that was in Bangor, Maine on Saturday, and he was talking about jobs and companies and bringing jobs back and making better jobs, and the fact that some people haven't had raises in years. And I happen to be one of those people, and it's not for lack of working hard, but it's big companies and the way they do things and the way they can do things and what's allowed, and that people are making less money now than they did 20 years ago in this economy the way it is now, and that he wants to change that. He might be a millionaire or billionaire, but he's a businessman. He's run business, he's run successful businesses, and he knows how to treat his employees. And I just believe that a businessman who's coming from that kind of an aspect, who has built an empire, a successful empire, he does care. And I do think that he is capable of bringing good quality jobs and putting some mandates in place that kind of force these companies to start treating people better, so they are able to, people are able to keep their jobs longer and make money and make raises, and have different kind of structures. The other thing was about drugs and the borders and keeping drugs out and helping addicts and people in recovery, that kind of thing.
Christina, Dan, have you heard anything from Hillary Clinton on the other side that says, you know what, yes?
I have. Hillary Clinton, if you give her an issue, she'll give you about 72 pages of policy paper with about 14 pages of footnotes on any given issue. She knows about the issue of, you name it. She has been down the road with jobs in New York State. She's been down the road with foreign policy. I think if Hillary Clinton has any one shortcoming in terms of being able to come up with policy, it's that she's got quite a few divergent opinions within her own camp. And it's going to be really difficult to see her acting as, if she is elected president, how she's going to manage the competing opinions below her. There isn't a single issue that I can think of that Hillary Clinton doesn't have a position on.
That's interesting. You just kind of mentioned the point was me, the next point, was that whoever's elected from the major parties, they're going to have to not only deal with working with the other side, they're going to have to work within their own party. And both parties, the Democrat and Republican Party, have had their own discord. Let me ask you this then. Who's in a better position, do you think, with the level of discord that's in their party going forward? Do you think if elected Donald Trump will be able to work with Republicans? Or do you think if Hillary Clinton's elected, she'll be able to work with the other Democrats? Let me start with you, Robert. If Trump is elected, will he be able to work with Republicans?
I believe that if Trump was elected, that it's not necessarily whether or not he'd be able to work with them, because the Republican Party, they've from get-go wanted almost nothing to do with him, but they've tolerated him, I guess you could say. But what I see is that Trump, he's not a politician. He's a businessman, and he's run 500 some businesses under Trump, under the name of Trump, and he's sat at the top of that, leading that many businesses. So I feel that he surrounds himself with people that are willing to work with him. And to me, it seems like he'll be able to compromise better or develop compromise between both parties more than Hillary Clinton will be able to, because there's that hatred that we've all talked about between Republicans towards Hillary, and it's just going to be like another 8 years of Obama where the Republicans wouldn't budge an inch and nothing gets accomplished.
Christina, taking it within the party, throughout the primary fight, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton went at it, and there was shown a level of hitting of heads. Do you see, if Hillary Clinton's elected, a working as far as bringing some harmony, especially within the Democrat Party?
Yeah, that's one of her bright spots, and that's one of the reasons why I've actually thought about voting for her, is because the Democrats already went through a lot of their discourse. Yes, they had the whole Bernie Sanders, but they realize politics is more than personal opinion, and she's shown as a senator that she can put aside her feelings towards people and can just say, you know what, we need to do something for our country, let's go ahead, we can work. Not like the Republicans. The Republicans, yeah, I don't see how Trump can work with the Senate, but I totally see Hillary Clinton. She's got too much history behind her. She's already built relationships with the people that are already in the House and the Senate to not be able to work with them. It's just going to matter who's going to be in charge of the House and Senate, because a lot of people that are talking about voting Trump are talking about not voting down party. Well, if they don't vote down party and the Republicans lose, well, where's your dynamic now? You know, what's going to happen here? Who's going to have to work with who? Is Trump going to have to work with Democrats because the Republicans aren't going to be there? Or is Hillary going to have to work, you know, which way is it going to go?
Let's kind of move on here. A few more questions, because this is getting great and fantastic. Whoever's elected will be either the oldest president of the United States or possibly the second oldest. If Donald Trump's elected, he will be 70 years old. He is 70, and will be the oldest president ever elected. If Hillary Clinton's elected, she's going to be turning 69. Will be just a little bit under Ronald Reagan. Obviously, age may be a factor. How much importance do you put then on the vice presidential candidates? Mike Pence for the Republicans, Tim Kaine for the Democrats. Have you looked at the VP nominees? And if so, what is it about them that makes it more appealing for you with that ticket? Let's start, Joe, with you as far as if you've heard of what you know as far as Tim Kaine goes. Let me ask you this way. Age, is it important for you?
Yeah, look at somewhat, you know, but the top of the ticket is what you're voting for. And I think Kaine serves that purpose. I think on the Republican side, I think his approval rating is pretty low in Indiana.
Trish, why don't we talk about with Mike Pence, when Mr. Trump selected Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, as his running mate. How important was that pick, especially with Donald Trump, if elected, would be the oldest president?
I think it was a really good pick. I really liked Mike Pence from the minute I saw him introduced as his running mate, as Trump's running mate. I just like his demeanor. I just like the way he speaks. I like I like everything about Mike Pence. I just adore him. In the debates a couple weeks ago, last week, whatever it was, I don't know. I just absolutely adore him. And I just think it's a great balance with Trump.
Has all the rancor about this election affected your thought on the other races? We have a big Senate race here in the state of Wisconsin, and of course, other races as it filters down. Has what's gone on maybe affected your thought process on that election, especially the Senate between Feingold and Johnson? What about you?
Like I said earlier, when I vote, it's based off of some key factors in my mind and my heart that I feel are important to me, and I select who I'm going to vote for simply based off of what I feel is the most important. I've actually sat down and made a list of policies that I feel are important, and whether or not they approve it or not it's kind of like making that Christmas list as you're a kid. It's you make that list and then you put that star next to the things that you really want, and that's just how I vote.
Dan, what about you? Has it affected your looking as far as the other races?
I've always liked Russ Feingold. McCain-Feingold tried to get some control over the money in politics. And here's McCain on the right, and here's Feingold from the middle left, and they really tried to work hard to get some campaign finance reform. And along comes Citizens United, and Katie barred the door, and this tide of sewage just rises out of the drain pipes all over K Street in Washington, just soaks right up to the Capitol building steps. And I can't wait I hope McCain wins so that he can meet up with Feingold again and they could maybe do something about campaign finance reform.
How do you try to talk to people, and especially those that, I guess let me ask this. How many are parents? Okay. How do you talk to your children about this election? Mom, Dad, what's going on? How do you try to answer their questions?
My kids are adults, so
What about grandkids?
1 year old.
Okay.
But it's this type of politics that we have now drive neighbors apart, drive families apart, and like I said, it's the politics I hate because everybody talks past one another, unfortunately. So try to understand their point and stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Robert, what about you? How old are your kids?
I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Your 6-year-old especially. If questions have come up, how do you try to?
I guess I try to steer them the same way I go. That you got to look at what your desires are and which ones are most important to you, and that is where your core beliefs should come from. Is what values are important to you. And both my kids, they go to Sunday school. They love Jesus. They tell me all the time, and I read the children's Bible to them too. So I believe that as they grow up, that their religious freedom is going to be a very important factor in their life choices.
We're gonna make this last question because we can be here all night, and it's been fantastic. Last question. On November 9th, the day after the election, we have a new president. And it's not who you supported. Will you accept that result? We're going to start with you, Dan, and we're going to work around.
Well, of course. I mean, it's a working democracy. All those poll workers out there, sitting behind those tables and checking people's names off. And I'm shocked that in the year of our Lord 2016 that we're even having a question like that being mooted. Would you accept the results? Is there a question that some people might not? Yes. There is a candidate out there saying that it's rigged.
Trish, let's going to go this way. If the result comes and it's not Mr. Trump, will you accept it?
Yeah, I'd be disappointed, but since I was a little girl, I was always raised to have respect for the president, and period. That's just the way it is. It might not be your choice, but I was also told since the time I was a little girl, if you don't vote, you can't complain. So that's the way I've always gone about it, and I'll support whoever is elected.
Robert?
Obviously I'll support that choice, and that's the beauty of our government, is that one really truly has the power over other people because we have the three branches. So I'd like to see cooperation on all fronts of our branches of the government, but I'll also support whoever it is, whether it's Hillary or Trump. And to me, as long as they honor their oath of office and they don't jeopardize the security of our nation, then I'll respect that.
Joe?
Yeah, guess I would. It's the United States of America, and that's the Constitution.
And we end with you, Christina, because you are still kind of out there as far as where you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking either way I look, the person I'm probably going to vote for is not going to win. So I'll respect it. I always respect the office of the Commander-in-Chief. I respect the position. Doesn't mean that I have to love the person that's in it. And 4 more years, you get to vote again.
Thank you very much, everyone. This has been a great discussion. We could go on for hours and days on this, and eventually we'll decide a president. Thank you very much, folks.